I have spent a lot of time setting up and studying in education institutions. You would feel that after so many years, you would know a lot about education, but it's not exactly that way. I am an enthusiast who is looking forward to learning more and more about education. Hello, everyone. I am Rahul. Today, I have with me Dr. Neha Khurana. Dr. Neha is an assistant professor at the School of Liberal Arts at Vidyashilp University. She is also an expert at the Vidyashilp University core. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Vidyashilp EdCast. Our theme for today is Mindful Education, Teaching Beyond Specializations. Hi Neha, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Rahul.
Thank you. So, Neha, I could not help but try and research through your profile, and I would like to start with something which raised a lot of questions in my mind. There was a thesis which I found about superior British identity. It involved about analysis of cartoons. I really got into thinking, how exactly would that work, in the academic learning spectrum?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So my doctoral thesis has been on political cartooning in India during the emergency years, and it focuses on the communicative aspect of political cartoons and how political cartoons, despite the stringent measures of censorship taken during the emergency years, could often subvert and bypass censorship and still make a point. And the point that I'm making there, the assertion, the submission that I make in that thesis is that political cartoons incite readers towards critical thinking and critical reading. And that's the skill they take from it. And laughter, therefore, which results from the political cartoons, is subversive and satirical because the readers and viewers are laughing at the narratives being presented to them, the dominant narratives being presented to them by the authorities, because the cartoonist has been able to present them with a counter narrative, which is far more convincing. And that they are able to do because cartoons are managing to sharpen their critical thinking and critical reading skills.
Indeed, at times, as a consumer of such content, I've often felt that people creating satirical content are the most intelligent ones. As users, we often feel that, we are finding it tricky to understand how much minds would have gone into creating that.
Yes.
It's really impressive. Neha, I would like to start with our discussion for the day. When we talk about holistic education, the word in itself is so broad, and the context also changes as the time evolves. How do we at Vidyashilp look at holistic education?
Right. So holistic, as the name itself kind of suggests, it's education of all spheres of a person, of all aspects of the personality. And it's extremely important, particularly today, because of late, a lot of research in the industry has shown that what recruiters are today looking for is not just technical skills in a candidate to be hired, but it's a combination of technical and soft skills. In fact, even in terms of leadership positions, the people who actually make their way up to important, significant leadership positions are generally the ones who are not just good and high on technical skills, but have a very good combination of technical and soft skills. So at Vidyashilp University, we look at holistic education from this perspective, and we try to nourish three different kinds of proficiencies in our students through what we call the core curriculum. The core curriculum is a set of courses which every undergrad student does at Vidyashilp University, irrespective of the specializations that they go in for. They could be an economics major, they could be a psychology major student, but they will all do those 24 credits of core curriculum, which actually nourishes the three proficiencies of social and cultural awareness, thinking and expression, and humanistic learning. So those are the three proficiencies that we build on. Should I go ahead and speak a little bit about each one of them?
Sure. I also have some experiences. Maybe I would, share some of my experiences,
Please.
and you could then enlighten us more on how we approach it. You talked about social and community. Now, I feel a lot of learning in many places still in the country is more about domains. Social and community as a focus area is something which seems to be lacking. Uh, when I studied in my colleges, I got some opportunities. For instance, as an undergrad student, I got a chance as a part of NSS to work with very small villages uh, and observe the process of how Anganwadi works there in the health and the education spectrum. In my post graduation, I got a chance to take up a course on public policy where I got a chance to work on a project to observe efficiencies and processes, requirements and challenges for anemia in women in suburban parts of Ahmedabad. So those were couple of instances where I feel I have been exposed to realities of the country. But beyond that, I feel a lot more exposure is something which is required for students to really understand the society that they live in. So it would be great if you could, tell us something about the social and community angle on how we approach it.
Right. So at the core curriculum of Vidyashilp University also gives students a hands-on experience of working in the community, as you spoke about the experiences which are very inspiring indeed. So for our students, we have a course called the Community Engagement and Service Program, which is a 1 credit course, and it's part of the core curriculum. And we do this over summer once their exams are over. So they are actually devoting themselves and their attentions to the community and field work, where we have tie-ups with NGOs and other organizations, so hospitals and NGOs. And our students go there, and they take the positions of interns, and they are divided into groups which do different kinds of community work and field work. For example, some would be doing solid waste management, some would be into lake cleaning, some would be into garbage collection mechanisms. So they will actually go house to house and interview people about waste separation, segregation practices, about waste collection practices, methods, etc. Create a map of the area. And they will give their inferences. So there is a briefing and debriefing session that takes place at the NGO for them, and then they go and observe what people are doing, sometimes interview them and bring back their observations. So that's one course through which we do that in a hands-on way. Otherwise, to build a social and cultural awareness even stronger in students, we also have other courses in the core curriculum, like Fundamentals of the Indian Constitution, socio-cultural perspectives of Indian life, environment studies and sustainability. These are all programs, these are all courses which build a certain awareness in students about the impact that they have on the society and the impact that society has on them. So this engagement between self and society, self and other, is what we build through this proficiency.
I think this is really great. The example, particularly being in Bangalore, the example of working around garbage, the disposal issues with lakes, because these are issues the government itself at large is fighting to solve today. And I really believe students should get that kind of an early exposure, irrespective of the program that they are in. Even if we look at it from a business program perspective, environment, sustainability are the sectors which the world is looking up to today,
Right.
to try to find problems and their solutions. I also wanted to understand. You talked about critical thinking. You talked about students' ability to express. So apart from soft skills, critical thinking is something I have felt comes as a challenge to a lot of people. I'll share my experience at workplace over more than a decade. I feel, as you mentioned, that people moving to the leadership roles are mostly those people who are able to think, articulate, structure their thought process. But I feel a lot of people are not able to do that, are somehow not able to overcome that challenge. And probably because, skills like negotiation, collaboration, cooperation, those skills are not being specifically imparted to the students. It's kind of assumed that those skills they will learn from the environment.
Right.
But more often than not, it's not working.
Right.
Because often I feel a lot of bandwidth of anyone in the corporate or in the working arena goes into making sure that the teams are cooperating in the right way.
Right. Yeah.
So how do we focus on those aspects?
Right. So the third proficiency that I spoke about earlier, thinking and expression, as I was saying, every proficiency has a unique way in which we design the pedagogical methods for it, right? Because every proficiency has a certain objective, and according to that objective, we design the pedagogical approaches for it. And therefore, for thinking and expression, the courses we have for that proficiency is analytical academic writing, critical thinking, problem solving with design thinking. Those are the courses that we do, which builds that proficiency. But also, pedagogical approaches are so designed that we have debates and discussions, that we have group discussions, a lot of group discussions, a lot of group work, a lot of group projects, right? Where they're supposed to collaborate with each other and make presentations in the class. And anybody who's ever been part of a group project will know that there are always issues that they face within those groups. That group becomes like a team at the workplace for them. And that's where they learn to collaborate with them and negotiate with them as well. Other than that, in addition to that, what the course critical thinking is also, what it also aims to do is to allow students to see or empower them to see that to look at anything from multiple perspectives is key to really solving the problem. And unless they are reading and listening critically, they are not solving problems. So in fact, this time as we were teaching the critical thinking course, we started the course with students reflecting on what are the barriers to their critical thinking processes. And they actually said that if somebody disagrees with me, with my opinion, an opinion which I hold very dearly, of course, varied responses came up. Some even said I would be very angry and I would actually want to take it up physically. But there were also others who said, oh no, not really. But the moment you take a minute to think, you know that that's not what you want to do. You know that you want to come back with more logic and you want to come back with more evidence, right? And that's how we develop this understanding as a group in the classroom, that to be able to stick to your opinion, if you want to stick to your opinion, it's also essential to be open. It's essential to have an open mind. When you're presented with a different opinion, what do? You go back, you look for more evidence, you look for better logic, and you come back to it. You revisit it. You take some time to rethink. So you never take any position as a given. You never assume that what you know is absolutely writ on stone. You always stay open-minded and inquisitive about what other opinions could there be about the same thing.
I believe it requires practice as well. It's one thing about, hearing the right things.
Right.
It's totally different about doing it yourself in a group.
Absolutely.
Because at workplace also, these situations come more often than not.
Yes.
I mean, at times, there is a leader whom I've observed. What he does is, if a team comes to him with a set of challenges in terms of cross-functional tasks, first he asks the teams to identify at what stage are they in. Are they competing? Have they started cooperating? Eventually, are they collaborating? He leaves them with that thought. Now asking them to think what stage they are in with respect to a problem-solving process. I think it's a great way to inspire people to self-understand that they have to get together to get a task done.
Absolutely.
And that is, I believe, from classroom to workplace, that translates.
Yes.
I mean, that ability to stay focused on work. Right. We always, at workplace, we hear this line, let's be work focused.
Yeah.
But it's great to see that in classrooms, we are helping students to work on it.
Absolutely. So a lot of courses like problem solving with design thinking also give them projects to, where they have to look for problems or issues that are being faced at the university, on the university campus, and then they're supposed to come up with solutions to solve those. So the idea is to look around yourself and also to look at others and the problems that they're facing, and to come up with innovative solutions that work for those. So it's experiential learning. The approach there, the philosophy there for education is experiential learning. They're learning by doing. They are solving the problems around them, and that is how they are working with it. So if a student comes to us and says, I don't want to work in a pair, I actually just want to work by myself, can't I just do that? I've given examples saying that when you are in a workplace, like I am in a workplace, you may not always get along with each one of your colleagues, but you have a way of professionally working with them. And that's what you're learning through the process. What you're learning through the process is not the topic of the project. That's not what you're learning through the process. The proficiency you're picking up is thinking and expression, to be able to articulate yourself and your views with clarity and with honesty, even when you disagree with the other person entirely, and to come to terms with it, come to a common point where you can really work with them. And I think the skill that kind of a proficiency takes on to, that it builds, is collaboration and negotiation skills, which, as you said, are used at the workplace more often than not.
Right.
Every day is a negotiation.
Right. And it's actually great to have such courses in the core, because even at the best places in the country in terms of management learning, I felt negotiation skill is something which was not focused on in depth, but that is what gets applied. A negotiation doesn't necessarily need to be a financial negotiation, but as you said, almost at every point, at every day in your workplace, you're negotiating something or the other.
Absolutely.
And that involves a structured process, so to say. Great. One more question coming from the discussion. I have seen a lot of individuals who learn the mastery of content because they have gained domain expertise. Probably psychology-wise, maybe when they went to school, that comes in. Suppose I want to be a computer engineer, so I take a computer science extra paper in class 12th. Then I go to undergrads, I do a computer engineering. Then I maybe become some project manager or program manager. I take that route. I only think about my domain. But at times, I have seen people becoming so focused with their content that the overarching onus on context goes missing.
Right.
Wherein someone might be a very good person being able to solve a problem if it is explained to that person how or why it should be done.
Right.
So how can we inculcate that larger understanding of context in our students?
Right. Yeah. So 2 responses to that actually. One, of course, our students are looking at everyday problems, and that by itself is teaching them how to place that problem in the context, right? They cannot be if they're doing projects around problems around them, then obviously they're first looking at the context. So of course it teaches them to understand, this is my context in the context of the university. Like one example of such a project would be data collection at the university. So our entry and exit data, of course they're collected for safety reasons, right? But do we have a data policy for it? So students actually investigated, found out for their projects, what is our data privacy policy? How is this data going to be used? And what other data are we generating for the employees and the students of this university and the other stakeholders of this university? So of course, when they do projects themselves, it's very good experiential learning for them, and they're learning through experience. On the other hand, we also have courses like Learning to Learn, where students, a part of which is making students aware of the various sources and methods through which they gain knowledge, right? And the various uses that knowledge can be put to, right? So an atomic bomb can be built with science as an aim in mind, because you want to know where science can go and you want to build the atomic bomb. But it can be put to so many different uses because it will be also in the hands of politicians who have the power to use it, right? So the recent movie Oppenheimer, for example, comes to class as an example there, right? So it becomes a case study for us in the classroom, where we look at how there is knowledge, right? Generation of knowledge, but how that knowledge will be used and how it has been generated, right? There have been compromises made to generate it, And of course, the use of it, the implementation of it can be very different in the hands of different people. So, in that component in learning to learn, we also focus our attention on what is knowledge and where does it come from. So, are there biases, inclinations, predispositions in knowledge itself? So, we question knowledge as an objective entity which is just given to us, and we look at it as a subjective thing, a construct, because it is created by human beings. And their inclinations, their predispositions, their plans of using it, etc., will reflect on that knowledge. They will all be a part of that knowledge. And therefore, we learn to look at very critically, we learn to look at our own methods and sources of acquiring the knowledge, acquiring that knowledge, all kinds of knowledge, very critically.
And I feel learning to learn is something which is very important, in the sense that quite often when we are working, our mind keeps getting into a zone that we start feeling with our own mindset that we are doing great, what I am doing is right. We become very reserved to inputs.
Right.
I guess what you talked about, it's very important to reflect on how things are going for yourself.
Right.
And that is where critical thinking, self-evaluation does become an important part in the workplace as well.
Absolutely.
I remember just based on the conversation, something came to my mind. A few months back, I had a chance to talk to you. You were talking about knowledge as a human construct. So, about AI, I remember you had shared your views on ethical usage of AI.
Yes.
I would like to know a bit more about it.
Right.
Also, I'll share something which I feel, again, with the context versus content thing. The prompts that we ask the AI, they lead to the content that gets generated.
Absolutely.
And that is where, again, a lot of effort has to be put into, at workplace, to make people learn and understand what kind of prompts will work and not. Again, that shows that critical thinking ability needs to be worked on more to work with AI as well.
Absolutely.
So,
Absolutely.
coming to the question, what's your take on AI being the in thing? Because people say AI is going to transform the workplace in years to come.
Yeah.
About usage, about context. How do you see the entire thing?
Right. So I have a couple of responses to that actually. So as an instructor who teaches academic writing, a lot of times I feel like saying that, oh, AI is a problem in the classroom. But at other times, immediately as I say this, I also realize that AI is here to stay, right? We've to learn to work with it, and we've to actually not just learn to tolerate it, we've to actually learn to use it to our advantage. And that's where we start to facilitate the student in understanding what are the ethical ways of using AI, right? So that's where this comes from. I do not use a lot of AI in my everyday life for any assignment or an article that I write at all. But our students come from a different generation. They have a much larger exposure, a much wider exposure to various tools. And I don't think it's right of us to stop them from using them, using these resources, right? But how to enable them to look critically at what is ethical and what is not. So my take on it has always been that there is a kind of use of AI which can help you to learn, right? So going back to learning to learn, there is a kind of use which helps you to learn, and there is a kind of use which stops that learning process, which becomes an obstacle in that learning process, right? So one is okay and one is not, right? So the kind of AI that actually helps you learn is, let's say I want to write a research paper. There are AI tools now that can generate a reading bibliography for you, right? It can tell you this is the work that has already been done in this area. So what it prevented you from doing is you didn't have to climb 3-4 floors of a library and hunt for things that have already been written about this particular area and talk to 100 people. AI gave you a list of things, 50 things that have already been written about it. These could be articles, books, etc. Now, this was my research topic and I know what's already been done. I will look at the entries, what AI has generated, read the most relevant ones, and then find a research gap and know that this is what my book or my article should be about, because that's where the gap lies. Now, this is where AI helped me to learn. But if I used AI to write my article instead, it became an obstacle in the process of learning. So as an instructor of academic writing, that's what I've been doing in the class, right? Trying to sort of inculcate this difference between ethical uses where you're actually taking some help from AI, but you're learning the course objectives as well. You're meeting your course objectives, which are to construct an academic essay, to express yourself with clarity, to communicate your opinion logically and coherently. So there's AI which can help you do that. Great, please go ahead, use it, cite it. Tell me this is what you did. Maybe I learned from that as well. But if you asked AI to write that article instead of you, then you actually stopped your mind from thinking, from making the necessary connections, right? From piecing together the pieces of the puzzle, bringing together the pieces of the puzzle. And that is where you lost a skill, right? So that became an obstacle.
It's amazing to hear that, the way you have structured it, I really admire it, because I think in reality, this is what the difference which I have felt in how people are using it in the right way versus when they are not.
Yes.
I'll just give you an example. Last year, I was working on a consultancy real estate project where we had to build a recommendation model for some financial subvention scheme for a real estate player. Now, this is something I had not done before. So I used ChatGPT, maybe, as a friend, talked to ChatGPT for a kind of an hour and built I don't exactly remember, maybe a 50, 60 page report based on answers to my questions. That report was essentially what all subvention schemes have been tried so far.
Right.
Because if I have to start from somewhere, it's a good way. In an hour, somebody is answering all the queries I have in mind.
Yeah.
That is a good way to go.
Yes.
But somebody, as you said, in practice I have seen as well, where the gaps I see, somebody may be working for a marketing team, trying to ask ChatGPT to create the content. The context goes missing.
Absolutely.
Or else, a very deep training into, transferring that mind of maybe a brand manager into the AI. That is required. That is a skill I feel which is still missing.
Exactly.
But definitely agreed. I feel this kind of learning is very important. And AI is here to stay. Better we train the students for that.
For that, exactly.
Yeah,
like we can't just hide from it, right?
True.
If you hide your face from AI won't go away. It's really here to stay. But we can make it work for us, right? And that's what we have to kind of teach our students, inculcate the habit of using it in that way. Ask the right questions. Use it in ways which help you to learn.
I have seen, just reflecting on this, going through a lot of resumes for different hirings and all, I think I've been able to, find out what's an AI written resume.
Right.
More often
exactly.
than not. Because, paragraph kind of lines, flashy adjectives, not talking about... So, now context part. If I am a recruiter, I look at a resume, I want to know what the person has done. I'm not... Yeah, there should not be grammatical spelling errors. But I'm not there to look at framing of paragraphs.
Right.
Not the beauty of it. I want to look at the work. So again, I feel a lot of candidates are missing on it because they are simply asking AI to write the resumes.
Absolutely. So in fact, we conducted a CV writing workshop last year. I also run the writing center at the university, as you're aware. So through the writing center, we conducted a CV writing workshop for our students and for the senior batch of students who were about to go for interviews for their internships and so on. And we wanted them to have some experience of how to write a CV and how to present themselves. And of course, you notice that a lot of them, like the first instance in the first motivation or inspiration is to, okay, I can just generate a CV through ChatGPT. But in practice, during the workshop, they're able to see that when I do that, my CV looks very similar to the next person and very similar to the next person and so on. Because of course, you don't have work experience when you are just starting out as an intern. You have school and you have some 1 year or 2 years of college life where you've conducted some projects and done these projects that you're assigned to do. But that's it. You don't have work experience even to show. So your resume, your CV can look very similar to another person. And everything lies, in fact, in what are the skills that you want to highlight about yourself, what are the aspects you want to highlight about yourself, which is humanistic understanding. This is humanistic learning. Learning about the self and learning about the other. Right? Learning about the self and learning about the other. So an understanding of myself, of my own CV, Understanding of myself will actually help me write a better CV. Because I must reflect on what are really my skills. What is it that I can do? Maybe I'm a good collaborator. Maybe I'm a good negotiator. Maybe I'm good at organization skills. Maybe I'm good at communication skills. So what are my highlights, right? ChatGPT doesn't know that.
True.
Right? So it takes humanistic learning to really understand yourself. And therefore, I'm saying that all of these proficiencies, the three proficiencies that the VU core focuses on, humanistic learning, social and cultural awareness, and thinking and expression, are finally building certain skills. They are finally building certain skills which are very tangibly required and asked for in the job market.
So, just to add on to it, you have already talked about it a lot, kind of trying to sum it up. How do you think the core at VU contributes to interdisciplinary mindset in the students?
Right.
Because interdisciplinarity is something quite, for us, when we were students, it came when we went to the job place.
Right.
That, okay, it's cross-functional, right? But for the new age learning, where interdisciplinarity is a core part of how learning is viewed, how does the core help in it?
Right. So the core curriculum, interestingly, of course, the core curriculum doesn't come from a discipline called core. It comes from certain disciplines, right? So fundamentals of the Indian Constitution comes from the discipline of law. Socio-cultural perspectives in Indian life comes from ethnography. Academic writing comes from English literature. So on and so forth. So all the courses in our core curriculum are courses which are coming from certain disciplines. But these are those aspects of those disciplines which have been determined to be of essential value as you build these proficiencies. And therefore, when all of these disciplines come together in a core curriculum, which every student, irrespective of the specialization he or she chooses, does, that's where interdisciplinarity comes from, actually. So an economic student also studying fundamentals of Indian Constitution will have an economic stake on it and will be able to find certain areas of research which are of interest to them. So will a psychology student find certain other areas of interest to them in fundamentals of Indian Constitution, or in academic writing, where we actually work with literary pieces, where we work with novellas and short stories to find something about why people behave the way they behave, like behaviors of people with others. Right? So that's one. I'm thinking I am specializing, or I want a major in psychology, but I'm looking at literature, right? And my skills are coming together there. And of course, the core curriculum itself is interdisciplinary for the very reason that all of these disciplines are coming together to form the core. Right. And the summation of that is the three proficiencies. So the multidisciplinary approach we take in the core curriculum is reflected in these three proficiencies, which leads to these skills which students build.
Understood. So I remember once I had read something, Dr. APJ Kalam, he had mentioned that in creating great learners, we should look at a well-rounded personality being created.
Right.
So I'm sure this kind of an approach will help students going forward in their careers in the long run. Absolutely. Because these are skills for life.
Right.
One last question which I faced this a lot I have faced it a lot in my work journey. When we talk to people about communication, even I used to do that. I have been an orator early stage of my student journey. If somebody would ask me about communication, I'll talk about body language. I'll talk about voice modulation. Those are the things I would focus about. How do you become a good communicator? But having worked for so many years now, what I realized, a good communicator has to be, it's a bias, maybe. I feel a good communicator is 80% good listener.
Yeah.
Because you are one person who speak, but you have to listen to so many people.
Absolutely.
So that ability to imbibe what others are saying, analyze, think before you speak, those skills are very important, is what I realize. But I find it lacking in a lot of people. And I feel, to be very honest, I feel that's one of the key reasons which determine who grows in an organization or a workplace or not.
Absolutely.
So on the listening front, how can we, what are your views on it first? And How can we, train students, or how are we doing it?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question, actually. And in my 11 years of teaching, I've also seen this as a reducing skill, as a diminishing skill, the skill of listening, the skill of just being able to listen and process what is being said. And in my view, listening is a skill which is very similar to reading, because even though the senses involved there are different, I'm absorbing through my eyes and I'm absorbing through my ears in the two different skills. But the internal reflection that takes place when I listen to someone or I read something written by that someone is similar. I reflect upon it. I think about what they think, what they are saying with clarity. And what do I think? Do I agree with it? Do I disagree with it? Why do I agree or disagree with it? The internal process, which is reflection on what I think and what is being presented, is similar. And I feel that both of these skills are actually diminishing, right? And I feel that better listening also comes from better reading, and similarly, better reading comes from better listening. Because what they both also have in common is not only that I'm reflecting on them, but also a certain open-mindedness to multiple perspectives. I want to listen to you because I think you have a perspective which might be a little different from mine, and therefore I will learn from it, or at least I will be able to evaluate where are we different. Are we different? And where are we different? What does it mean? Right? So this inquisitiveness about multiple perspectives, the inculcation of a certain open-mindedness in learning more, in just knowing that if this is a perspective about this particular social issue, I have this perspective and I really, really believe in this perspective. But how is it that others have different perspectives? What is the logic behind it? What is the logic for saying what they are saying? Let me learn about that as well. So a certain open-mindedness is actually at the heart of both reading and listening skills, right? And it's like a vicious cycle. You believe in multiple perspectives, therefore you listen and read. And because you listen and read, you develop the ability to hold multiple perspectives.
True. I think you rightly said, this is also something which requires a lot of learning, and in turn empowers you to learn.
Right.
It helps you build a lifelong skill if you have that kind of an attitude. Because there was a business leader whose talk I was listening to. He said to become a good listener in conversations which are important, critical, where you want to get something out from that conversation, maybe a negotiation. He was talking about, before going into any such conversation or a meeting, I would force myself to sit and think, what are the three things which can go totally not in my favor?
Yeah.
Or what are the kind of questions the person might ask which I'm not comfortable with? So again, goes into that critical thinking mindset. You can prepare for it also. If you have that kind of attitude that wherever you are going, you want to get something out of it, be it learning, be it outcome. I'm sure if students are trained in that way, and then they start thinking that way, they will become great learners for life.
Absolutely. Yeah. To be able to anticipate different perspectives and to also keep an open mind when those perspectives are sometimes presented with vehemence, right? If I can hold a perspective very close to heart, like I really believe in it, then so can another person, right? And just the very fact that I'm open to listening to those perspectives makes me a much more open-minded person, and it gives me a wider perspective on that issue as well.
True.
So listening to class debates and discussions sometimes makes me realize that, okay, maybe there are factors why my students think about certain things differently. A group of my students think of things differently from how I do, or a group of my students thinks differently from another group of my own students, right? They've been learning the same things in the same classroom, and yet they have very different perspectives on it. So to see the growth and to see how different perspectives are shaped by different cultures, by different upbringings, by different mindsets, by different education, etc., is key to understanding the self's engagement with the society. And that's again a key skill in negotiation, collaboration, communication, and so on.
True. Thank you so much, Neha. I think on mindful education, this was amazing to hear. So many thoughts on how you are bringing this into practice,
Right.
and inspiring a generation of young people to make a difference in their life. It's really inspiring. On that note, just taking from one of the points that Neha made made in the end, we should become great listeners, and listening and reading are very related skills. So let's all try to become critical readers. Reading is something which is going to help all of us become mindful in our careers. Thank you so much.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Neha,
much.
for joining us.
Thank you.